If you've been with us, you'll know we spent some time exploring that idea of polycrisis. Those really complex, interlocking global challenges. They can feel, well, pretty overwhelming at times. Today, though, we're kind of building on that. We're shifting our focus to something I think incredibly empowering.
Exactly. And that feeling of being swamped by these huge, grand-scale problems, that's completely understandable. But our sources today offer a really powerful counter-narrative. It's this idea that effective solutions, I mean, even for these massive global issues, often start much closer to home, at a fundamental local level.
That's fascinating. So, our mission today really is to explore how local actions can actually achieve global goals. We're diving deep into the world of community based efforts and these place based interventions. We want to unpack their sometimes surprising benefits, but also acknowledge the real hurdles they face, and then figure out okay, how can we make sure they deliver the best results possible? So, what does it genuinely mean to think global, act local, and, practice? Let's get into it.
Well, when we talk about tackling really complex issues like, say, climate change or health inequities, it's easy to get lost in the sheer scale of it all. But what our sources consistently highlight is that impactful change often takes root in very specific geographic areas. These are what we call place-based strategies.
Okay, place-based. I like thinking of it as custom-fitting solutions, tailoring them specifically to a particular neighborhood, maybe a city or even a smaller region. It's about recognizing and, well, leveraging local strengths, and crucially, empowering community members to actively participate, making them co-authors of their own success stories, right? Like the United Way NCA's Project Community Connect. They set up these pop-up resource fairs for vulnerable individuals. That's a brilliant example, isn't it? Meeting people exactly where they are physically and, well, circumstantially.
hmm And it's really vital to distinguish this from what are often called people-based strategies.
Hmm.
Well, people-based approaches focus more on equipping individuals, giving them skills or resources, regardless of where they are, like planting seeds in a portable pot, maybe. Place-based strategies aim to improve the entire environment. They focus on the soil, water, and climate of a community, basically creating conditions where everyone can thrive. And our research suggests the most effective interventions usually, well, they harmonize both approaches. They create a richer ecosystem for change.
Right. And what's particularly compelling, I find, about these local solutions is that many aren't just top-down mandates. They're not coming from big government programs all the time. They often seem to emerge organically from what are called community-based organizations, or CBOs.
Exactly. CBOs, just by their nature, are intimately connected to the communities they serve. That proximity is a massive advantage. It allows them to very quickly identify how crises, like the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, can worsen existing social and health inequities. They often spot those early warning signals of complex interacting problems, what some sources call syndemics, before larger institutions even register them. A syndemic, yeah, it's not just one disease. It's when multiple health and social problems kind of interact and amplify each other. They create a compounded crisis.
Wow, that kind of speed and that deep contextual understanding, that's invaluable, isn't it? Take the ECJET organization in Eastern India you mentioned. They saw how droughts and the pandemic hit migrant workers. So they empowered local youth to create kitchen gardens for food security, simple, direct. Or Sauti Data Africa in Kenya. They tackled the dual impact of drought, flooding, and pandemic restrictions. How? By addressing pre-existing conflicts and promoting kitchen gardens to cut down on domestic violence, these examples really show how that hyper-local knowledge lets them be agile, culturally tuned in. Things that larger organizations, well, they just can't replicate easily.
hmm And beyond that immediate crisis response, these localized actions foster remarkable resilience. Think about local food systems, for example. Developing those makes communities far less dependent on fragile global supply chains. We saw this during the pandemic, right? With successful food basket exchanges in Peru, community food banks in Finland, and in Alaska, the Sitka Conservation Society created a mutual aid network. Prepaid grocery cards, seafood donations. They recognize those unique local dependencies. It really shows how these local loops can act as vital shock absorbers against global instabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the benefits seem to extend significantly into economic areas too. Livelihoods. We're talking about initiatives like Iniciativa Talamanca in Costa Rica. They generated an average annual profit of $500,000 for marginalized communities. through organic agro-ecosystems. Or a more recent example from Brazil, Polo Probio. It provides employment for indigenous youth processing raw latex. They turned a, what, $2 per kilo product into a $30 per kilo high-quality item. These cases, when you look at them together, they really show that local innovation, when it's rooted in community assets, it can generate substantial income. But it can also kind of redefine value chains from the ground up. It proves economic development isn't just a top-down thing, right?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And critically, local action also translates into tangible improvements in health, safety, overall well-being. There are studies from cities like Philadelphia, Youngstown. They show that relatively simple place-based interventions like cleaning and greening vacant lots or fixing up abandoned buildings, these things can significantly reduce violent crime, even lead to reductions in gun assaults, vandalism, making communities feel demonstrably safer. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, how many simple local actions could have such profound ripple effects on safety, on well-being.
Totally. And it's not just about safety, it's also about empowerment, isn't it? When communities get involved, their collective voices gain real political weight. You mentioned the Proyecto NASA in Colombia. They successfully lobbied for legal recognition of indigenous peoples' fundamental rights. Similarly, CABI in Bolivia gained co-management rights for a national park. These aren't just small local wins. They feel like fundamental shifts in power dynamics. It proves the immense political leverage that organized local action can create.
And what's truly inspiring here is the innovation, the sheer level of it. CBOs are often pioneers of novel, really context-specific approaches. The Trowel Development Foundation in the Philippines, for instance. They used tie crab farming and mangrove reforestation. This improved livelihoods and protected coastal areas. It even buffered against the worst impacts of Typhoon Haiyan. Their ingenuity, it provides a bridge to sustainable livelihoods, and it can definitely inspire solutions in completely different places.
Speaking of inspiration, our sources strongly emphasize the crucial role of indigenous wisdom. That comes up again and again. Centuries of living in harmony with nature, right? It's given indigenous communities these profound insights into sustainable practices. You think about agroforestry systems in Mali and Burkina Faso. They reduce soil erosion, protect livelihoods from climate extremes. Learning from and incorporating these deep historical practices seems vital for preserving biodiversity, for nurturing the environment globally. It's about respecting and learning from generations of accumulated knowledge.
Absolutely. But despite these really immense benefits, local action certainly faces significant challenges. Let's be clear about that. One major hurdle is, well, predictably, funding. CBOs often struggle with a scarcity of large-scale funding, and also robust networks for knowledge and support. And during crises like the pandemic we talked about, resources are frequently diverted to emergency measures. That leads to longer-term development initiatives chronically underfunded.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that creates a major bottleneck. And another big challenge, it seems, comes when you try to evaluate these place-based approaches, because they're designed to address these wicked problems, those complex, tangled challenges with no easy answers. Defining clear objectives upfront can be really tough. And that makes it hard to measure attribution, like what would have happened anyway without the intervention. And even just collecting consistent data across different areas is difficult.
Indeed. And some critics argue that by trying to do too many things at once, place-based work can lead to muddled approaches without a clear theory of change guiding them. And there's a critical point raised here. Local efforts can't always overcome global, national, or systemic challenges all by themselves. As one source put it quite powerfully, neighborhoods are not islands. A really robust local strategy can still fail if, say, the regional economy is weakening or the population is shrinking. These things often require vast resources that are just underestimated.
Right. That raises an important question about this idea of tipping points. The hope that small investments can somehow kickstart much bigger market changes. Our sources seem to suggest that for severely distressed areas, those tipping points are at much, much higher investment levels than most people anticipate, often requiring hundreds of millions of dollars over decades, like the East Lake Initiative in Atlanta. Smaller investments, why helpful, might just not have that broad transformative impact across a whole community that people hope for.
And finally, there's the pervasive risk of displacement. This is a really tricky one. If a place-based intervention successfully makes a neighborhood more attractive, more desirable, well, it can inadvertently lead to gentrification, which means the very residents it aimed to help might get priced out, forced to move. And high mobility rates in low-income communities already make ensuring residents stay long enough to genuinely benefit from improvements a constant complex challenge.
Okay. So, given all these factors, the benefits, the challenges, what does this all mean for maximizing the impact, for effective local action? First, our sources strongly advocate for this principle of subsidiarity. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Subsidiarity basically means that decisions about efforts to help others should, by default, happen at the smallest, most local level possible. You only escalate to a larger scale when it's absolutely necessary. This allows communities to strategically kind of disengage from larger, maybe more fragile supersystems. It helps revive local economies and resources in a way that respects their unique context. And it empowers them to make their own choices.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's another concept that stood out, translocalism. This sounds really interesting. It's not just connecting up to national or global institutions, but connecting out to similar efforts in other places.
That's precisely right. Translocalism. This approach allows for collective knowledge production, sharing innovations across boundaries, building a sense of community identity that goes beyond just one location. And digital platforms have been absolutely crucial here. They enable CBOs to share experiences, access training, build mutual aid networks, even across continents. The GEF Small Grants Program, for instance, facilitates these extensive South-South exchanges. They transfer knowledge on innovations like producing green charcoal from plant waste in Africa. It's really about building a web of shared learning.
Right. And that connects directly to creating genuinely inclusive spaces, doesn't it? It means fostering community decision-making,
Yeah.
using things like citizen assemblies, deliberative processes, empowering local people to set their own climate priorities, for example. It's also about community collaboration, moving away from top-down directives towards more equitable co-production of solutions, like community energy projects you hear about. It's a shift, like you said, from being told what to do to actually helping create the solution together.
And critically, community capacity building, which means giving people the skills, the resources they need to take action themselves. This allows for a truly polycentric approach. That just means a system with many distributed centers of power and decision-making, where diverse local initiatives can thrive independently, but also learn from and inspire each other across different areas. The FIDO network highlights how network weavers are key here, people who connect other people and projects, enhance collaboration, knowledge sharing, collective action. That's really key to systemic change, having those connectors.
Yeah, those weavers sound vital. The experts also stress that for these place-based approaches to really work, they need robust ongoing evaluation. Not just evaluation to prove what happened afterwards, like a tick box exercise, but more importantly, to learn what actually works. For whom? In what contexts, and how and why it works. This needs long-term adaptive plans, doesn't it? With continuous two-way communication between the evaluators and the people actually doing the work on the ground. It has to be a living feedback loop.
Exactly. And finally, we need a deepened, sustained commitment from funders. This is crucial. Local action takes time, often decades in some cases we looked at. It requires consistent long-term funding that supports these multi-sectoral initiatives, not just short-term emergency relief funding. And it demands that we focus not only on the specific solution itself, but also really understand the local context, the existing systems, to truly unlock their potential for long-term impact.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, the listener, navigating this world of really complex challenges? I think it means recognizing that the most potent solutions aren't always in faraway boardrooms or big international summits. They're often right outside your door, in your own community.
This deep dive, I feel, reveals that investing in local initiatives, empowering communities, valuing indigenous knowledge, fostering these strong networks, it isn't just a nice idea. It's an essential, proven pathway to build resilience, to address inequities, and ultimately to achieve those global goals we started with.
So maybe the next time you feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of global problems, perhaps consider how you might engage locally. What stands out to you from today's discussion? Is there a way you can connect with, maybe amplify, the incredible work that might be happening right in your own backyard, while also perhaps co-learning with others doing similar things around the world?
There's undeniable power in local action. And there's even more power, I think, when those local actions are connected, shared, and celebrated globally. This interconnected local global approach. That really feels like it's at the heart of building a more resilient, more equitable future, one community at a time.